This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, everyone. I'm Pam Davis. Welcome to episode 100 of the Well Done Life podcast. If you're new here, hey, how are you? If you've been here before, thank you guys so much for continuing to rock with me. We're kind of kicking it a little different this week. I actually have video formatting going along with the audio. So, God love, we're just going to try to make this work. But I definitely want to make sure that I start our podcast off very foundationally. You guys know I always love to do that, and I'm very excited about our guests. So I'll breeze through this pretty quick, and then we will bring in the lovely Ms. Tennille Martinez and get started on our conversation. So first and foremost, when I'm building this podcast or talking about it, I really always like to make sure that we know that this is a safe space. And so, with our safe space, we have to build it on two very important foundations. And that's always going to be clarity and love. Clarity is pretty straightforward. I just want to make sure you know why you're here. This is a podcast for women, The Well Done Life. It's something that I created because I wanted a safe space for women to come together, share our stories, learn, and grow. And also, our other thing that we are building this on, which is one of my favorite things, is love. And I want you to feel loved and supported while you're in this space. So, in this space, I always like to make sure that I send prayers. And so, this week, I'd like to send you prayers of perseverance. Don't give up. Do not give up. If there is something inside of you that you want to do it. And I want to send prayers of being present. I want you to be present in the moment. It doesn't take much if we think about it to make ourselves or other people happy. It's the small things, but be present. Don't let anything distract you from any moments where you can feel love. Because I want you to feel love, like I always say, from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, especially in these crazy times. You need to be able to really protect yourself in those moments where you can feel love. So I really want you to just feel it from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. And I also want to make sure this week that I am sending you prayers of understanding and empathy. We are seeing what's going on outside of the world, not just with this pandemic, which is still going around, even though we're not talking about it as much right now. But we're also talking about what's going on with Ukraine and Russia. And it's scary. It's scary, I'm sure, for those people over there. But it's also scary for us because, like it or not, we potentially could be involved in World War III. And I'll be quite honest, I didn't have World War III on my 2022 bingo card. And it is scary. So give yourself a break from some of the news when it starts to overwhelm you. Um, don't allow your thoughts to get ahead of you too far. You know, obviously, we all have to pay attention to what's going on, but don't get caught up in the rhetoric. Don't get caught up in the noise. You know that we serve an awesome God, one. And then two, you have to know that if you can see how people can come together over there, just imagine what we'll do here. So I have faith. I'm really clinging to faith. So I'm sending you prayers of faith that we'll make it through. But I want to make sure that you kind of give yourself a moment to break away from all of this madness and spend time with people that you love and who encourage you and support you and who make you smile. Because you need a hell of a lot of moments like that right now in all this madness. So I think we've kind of set the foundation. This is episode 100, and I'm super excited about our guest. This has just been a crazy time. If anyone told me that we would have hit 100, I would have probably told you 2 years ago that that would have never happened. Because, like I was trying to say before in last week's episode, I was just trying to put a 5 pack out, see how it worked out. And I was just hopeful somebody would like it. And to be here at 100, I just feel blessed. And I'm so blessed to be able to also have Tennille Martinez with us again. And it's so funny because Tennille might have forgotten, but I first had her on the podcast on September the 13th, 2020. And we were talking about her business and how she is an internet maven in regards to coaching and developing, as well as an educator and balancing it all. But now we're here to have a whole new conversation. So, Tennille, would you like to introduce yourself to the Well Done Life part audience again, or reintroduce yourself?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. I feel honored to be part of your 100. I
Girl.
cannot believe that, I didn't realize it was 2020.
Yes, I had to look it up last night, and I know I keep track of dates. Yes, September 13th, 2020.
Amazing. Amazing. And to
It's crazy.
celebrate your 100, I am here. I am excited, elated, exhilarated, all the things. So just to tell your audience a little bit about me, my name is Tennille Martinez. I was also known as the Miss Virtual Maven, Pinterest marketing extraordinaire, as well as being an undercover teacher, because I didn't tell anyone I was really teaching. And I am still a middle school teacher, also coach, instructional coach. And my business is taking a pivot. It's going in a different direction. I am no longer going to be part of the Pinterest marketing, which I haven't told my audience yet. They're aware. Some people are aware that I've been shifting. And now I'm leading towards more coaching, doing things that bring me joy, which surround books, like I was telling Pamela before we started our podcast or this podcast.
Yeah.
And also starting my own podcast, and that's going to launch in about a month. So I will give you the firm date and everything so you can share with your audience when that launches.
I'm very excited about that because Tennille and I have had many conversations about her pursuing this journey. Because when we first talked, I just always felt you had that lean toward life coaching. And again, I think, as a woman of color, I think it's so important that we have people out there that are reflective of our communities, who are trying to encourage and inspire each other across everybody, because everyone's experiences are different. And I just kind of, like I always say, there's no one expert at it. So I always think that it's great when women can come together and not be afraid to share their stories and talk about the journey that they're in. And it's funny that we're kind of like talking about being limitless, because this month, and one of the reasons why I thought it was just so perfect to have you on, is because I kind of wanted to do like a month where we talk about, checking in with ourselves and our goals, and just kind of making sure that we're giving ourselves space to celebrate the things that we are doing that are going well, learn from our challenges, and just keep going, because Q2 is almost around the corner. And we still want to keep things moving in spite of all the madness that is going on within our 2022 bingo card. So I'm very honored to have you here with me on this episode. Like I said, I just feel like it's perfect, it's intentional, it's timing, it's right. So now that we kind of realize that you are like going in this new direction, and I guess how did you finally make the decision, essentially, to take the limits off? Because it sounds to me like that's what you really have done.
Yes.
How did you finally get to that point?
Well, this has been a year in the making. This wasn't an overnight, oh, okay, I think I'll start a podcast. I've talked about starting a podcast for years. Never pulled the trigger. I've talked about coaching for years. Never pulled the trigger. I'm an instructional coach, so I'm used to coaching teachers around using the best strategies and how to bring class engagement, like all of those things, but never the personal side. And last year, well, it started in 2020, I took this focus of looking inward, journaling, reading, going to my favorite things, books, reading my books, applying what I'm actually reading. And I took a long, hard look at myself and really asked myself, was I happy? And I wasn't. I wasn't happy where I was. I wasn't happy internally. Externally, everything looked great, but internally, I just wasn't. And I took the steps to move forward and apply what I've read, apply what I've encountered, coach myself pretty much. And I didn't do this all on my own. I was through the support of books and podcasts. Your podcast, I love listening to it every Sunday. That's like one of my things I do on Sunday morning. And just making sure that for this year, I don't think I even had a word last year. This year, my word was limitless. I was reading a book, Limitless, and I was like, okay, this is it. This was the word that I was looking for, and I'm not going to stay within the limits anymore. There's going to be a lot of changes this year. There were changes before that have taken place, but this year, we're just breaking the limits in terms of this business, where it's going, where I'm going.
Right.
Breaking the limits within my personal life, relationships, and how I view myself, and setting my own boundaries, and making sure that those boundaries don't encage me, but that expand and broaden everything that is to you.
I totally can understand that. And it's so funny because I had done an episode recently on self love with a lot of other ladies. And I asked this question to them. I'm going to ask it of you as well because I just am kind of curious. Do you feel like that discovery that you made within yourself, the reflection of realizing that you weren't happy, do you think that that still would have happened if it hadn't been for the pandemic?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I
Mm,
was so busy. I mean, it may have happened maybe 5 years from
mhm,
now,
mm,
but I think the pandemic just put everything to a grinding halt and gave me time to put things into perspective.
mhm,
I've lost a few people due to the pandemic. I've lost people during the pandemic, not only to death, but lost because of relationships that have broken, no longer functioning. Like it wasn't good for mutual parties.
mm.
And had the pandemic not happened, I don't think I would have taken the time to like really sit and think, because you're busy with work and you're busy with commuting and you're busy doing all the things and taking care of friends and socializing and all of the things, but not really focusing on, what's happening in here.
Right.
And doing that during the pandemic, that's how I was able to lose 78 pounds. That's how I was able to, yeah, it was like, and
Congrats.
thank you. And it took from reading, not only passively reading books, but applying what I've read, applying the podcast information that I get,
Mhm.
because I listen to a lot of podcasts too,
Yes.
and journaling, reflecting through my journaling in terms of like, what is it that I truly want? What is it that I want for the next phase in life?
Yeah.
Because time is precious. And if that's anything that we got from the pandemic, is that we have to make sure that we use this time wisely. We're
Hmm.
not promised. Nothing is promised to us. So we have to take advantage of this time. So do you want to
Totally.
continue to stay in those boundaries, or do you want to be limitless? And that's,
Right. No, I totally agree with that because, and it's funny, like I said, I've heard varying answers. So I was really curious about how that would have impacted you because I kind of feel the same way. I don't feel like I would be as at peace as I am now. I'll be honest, if I hadn't had that moment, just because we are constantly moving and going and doing all the wonderful things. Now that you see that things are kind of shifting back, how are you prioritizing keeping that mindset?
it's been difficult because you get lost in time. So what I do is I make sure that I schedule the time to journal. I schedule the time to read. I
Mhm.
schedule the time to connect with like-minded people, to make sure that we keep each other accountable. um, I had just a business networking Saturday event that was in person during the pandemic, and we were talking about the impacts of just everything that's happening, and everyone was just so excited to be able to connect in real life
Mhm.
to discuss all of these things. So making sure that you know exactly what it is that you want and making time for it. No longer
I-
getting lost in the shuffle of like, I got to do XYZ and this and that. And no, like really think about and planning your calendar out and following, keeping your word to yourself, not only to everybody else, but to yourself.
Oh, yeah, that's a word right there. Because 9 times out of 10, we are typically the first person that we let down
Yeah.
all the time, all the
Yes.
time. So I totally get that. And I admire that you have that routine because it is a struggle for a lot of us to be able to do it. But I know you're very passionate about journaling and reading. And I know you mentioned like Limitless kind of kicked off your journey. Can you tell us a little bit about that since you are on, it seems like a new Limitless journey?
Well, in terms of the book, what it talks about is learning faster and applying what you're learning and just using your brain to its not full potential, because we only use a portion of it, but to increase that portion of what we currently use. And just it goes to making sure that those routines are in place, making sure that I'm accountable to myself. And I had a little, I want to say like a riff in my routine and schedule, socialize a little too much. And I was like, okay, so you didn't meal prep and you didn't journal today. And I was about to start going in on myself. And I was like, no, 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 no.
Right.
You also being gentle, knowing that, the same grace that we give to others, we have to give to ourselves.
Yes.
And just taking that into account. So making sure that not only am I pushing myself to be limitless, but also take care of myself in the process.
No, I agree. Because yes, we are also our harshest critics. So I'm so glad you said that, because I was like, I struggle too, and I'm sure a lot of people do, trying to keep the routines, especially as life is starting to just get back to a faster pace. It's very different now. So Limitless sounds amazing, and I'll make sure, guys, I put a link to the book in the show notes. With that though, what are you currently reading, and how is that like applying to what you're, how you're keeping yourself accountable now?
Okay, so what am I currently reading? Do you have time to listen to the entire list? Because I read multiple books at the same. Yes,
Oh my gosh, you're one of those people.
I I have a problem. So I even downloaded a book today. It's called Q. I think it's called Q. It's about reading people's body
Okay.
language
Oh,
and
okay, cool.
how that can people make snap judgments just based on what they're looking at, and they also reflect that on, well, is it me? And it's really never about that person. It's just about how they perceive it. So I haven't gotten fully into that book. I just started that one today. I'm also reading 12 and a half, I think it's 12, or by Gary Vaynerchuk. I just finished Will Smith's
Okay.
book. Okay, so Will Smith's book. If you are a fan of Will Smith and you grew up in the 90s with hip hop, you need to download the audiobook, because he's
Okay.
reading it and he includes music and you feel like you're right there with him. And just listening to his journey, that you think, oh, he had it easy, he's rich, and everyone has a struggle. Everyone is on this course of life and they face their own obstacles. And, there's good times, but there's definitely some obstacles in the way. So that's one I just finished listening to,
Okay.
loved it. And I also read with my students. So we're reading The Giver,
Oh,
Lewis
very cool.
dystopian novel. Yeah, so we're talking
Okay.
about how some things are extremely similar to what's happening now during the pandemic to items in the novels. So they're making those real life references to
Oh,
this.
very cool.
Yeah, my middle
So book.
schoolers.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I remember we used to read the best books then. And
Mhm.
so I personally think sometimes reading young adult books are a great way as adults for us to kind of like disconnect from some of the stress that we read, because that we experience. Because I
Yeah.
know I had really been into like Hunger Games and all of those. So it's really good when you can grab a good book like that. So I'll make sure I get a list of I'm going to have you send me a list of your top 5 reads right now, so that
Okay.
way I can put your top 5 in there. But like you said, books are something that you love and that you just kind of always gravitate to as a resource. But just kind of kicking it back a little bit to Limitless, but since that's kind of like what your word is and what the book that inspired you, how do you define being limitless? What does being limitless mean to you right now?
For me, it's pursuing my heart's desire, what I want for my life. If I want to, like, I've always wanted to start the podcast. And I've talked about my biz besties. We have this conversation. And I asked them, I told them before I said anything to anyone, they're like, you've been talking about starting a podcast for years.
Yeah.
And I've known them since 2017. So they're like, about time. And they're and not about time, like final, but they were like happy that you're doing something that you've talked about and you're not keeping yourself in this box anymore. You're pushing those boundaries, those limits. You're really extending it and expanding. So to be limitless, yeah, that's why this word is so important to me this year. There's future things that are in the works too that I'm not going
Right.
to discuss just yet. So,
Okay.
audience, stay tuned. It will
Yes.
be coming.
We'll have her back to talk about those things. Okay.
And
I love it.
so making sure that it's not only limitless in terms of business, but also for myself,
Yeah.
putting myself out there more in
Yeah.
terms of dating life. And I can't even
Yeah.
believe I'm saying that. Yes.
But you got to
So
claim it. You want it. You got to claim it.
yes. So going out there and not letting limits stop me from pursuing the relationship that I want, the business life that I want, the
Mhm.
finance life that I want. In my career, I'm telling everybody stay tuned because I know what I'm doing and saying up here in my brain, and I forget that this is a podcast, so I have to make sure that not only referencing to the video, but yes, I was
Right.
pointing to my brain, what's happening in there, but to actually let it come out from within
Yes.
and sharing all of my talents and gifts. And everyone has a talent and gift. You may think you don't, but everyone absolutely does. And making sure that you're channeling into that and sharing it with everyone. So
Oh,
that's what I'm doing for 2022.
I love it. And I totally agree with the expansion. I'm right along there with you. Being limitless is a very interesting journey because it is, like you said, you're expanding yourself and you're putting yourself out there in so many different ways. And I know it's just like I was mentioning earlier, we're just kind of like at that point into Q2, Q1, where it's like the end of Q1 almost, and it's time to start thinking about how this is working and our intentions. What is one thing that you have learned up to this point about yourself on your limitless journey?
Definitely that I can plan to no end. I can plan, I can plan for 10 years. And I've done that in the past where at this age I'm gonna have this and this age I'm gonna have that. Um, Definitely to give myself some grace with that planning.
Mhm.
And it's really going into what do I want for my life, setting those intentions for going in that direction, but not beating myself up if I don't get there. Because maybe that's not for Q1 of 2022. Maybe that's for Q1 of 2025. But
Right.
definitely to journal and process those feelings and those thoughts and what I want for my life and for those that are around me. Because I know that my scope of it's like there's and it just slipped my mind right now.
That's okay. It'll come back.
It'll come
It'll
back,
come back.
but
It'll
it's
come back.
like yeah, no, it's gonna come in a second. But knowing
Okay.
that impact, the zone of impact of frequency that I have, it's for the people like connecting with you, Pam, and connecting with others, and just making sure that I'm sharing those talents with others,
Yeah.
because you don't know what one word or even a thought, an idea, a conversation that can spark and move someone into the direction that they're supposed to go into.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my goodness, it's amazing how intention can just draw you to the right people, to the right moments, to the right pull, so that you can get what you need to get done while at the same time inspiring someone else on their journey. So I totally agree with that. Do you feel like there's anything at this point, again, just thinking about what we're, talking about being limitless and how we're at the end of this first quarter, do you feel like there's anything that you should have done differently at this point?
No, no, I think
Yeah.
everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. I mean, I could say I'm still on the weight loss journey. That's not
Right.
over. I'm still working on that. I'm still working
Aren't
on
we all?
single day.
Right.
But I'm giving myself again some leeway, some grace to get
Hmm.
there. I'm not gonna, oh, it's Q1 and I didn't make the money that I didn't make, or I didn't lose the pounds that I wanted to lose. And no, I'm not doing that. I am trying to be nicer to me, showing myself the love that I show to many, to others,
Yes.
and just making sure that checking in. Am I
Yes.
getting, what is stopping me from getting there? Is it a thought? Is it a feeling? Is it my surroundings, my environment? What's happening and how can I change that? Because the only person that I can control is me. The only person that I have full control over is me. And what I need to do is figure out, why am I not reaching those goals? Why am I not reaching, and not beating myself up for it? That's one
Absolutely.
thing we need to stop doing to ourselves and to
Yes.
others. Like, be kind to others. Like, people are going through a lot,
Yep.
but so are we, and we have to be nice to ourselves.
No, I totally agree with that. And it's funny because that's something I always like to talk about as well. Because, like I've said to my audience, I am my worst critic. Like, there's nothing that anyone is going to say about me that I have not probably already said about myself and worse. Because the way that, our minds tend to work, we're always trying to be perfect, we're always trying to achieve every goal within a specified amount of time. And if we don't, we normally fall apart
Mhm.
and we break or we lose focus and just totally blow it all out. How are you keeping yourself inspired with this limitless perspective going on?
Definitely, I pray a lot. So
Mm.
I don't want to say I'm religious, but I have a deep faith and and relationship with God. That's one. So making sure
Mhm.
that I continue that relationship. Journaling, again, journaling not
Yeah.
only to just document my life, but document the feelings and what is it that's preventing those next steps from happening, or celebrating myself
Yes.
and having that. And sometimes my journal entries are like conversations to God, just like something that may have happened, not only for myself but for others. And then just making sure that I continue these connections with people that inspire, that encourage, that motivate you to get to the next step. Not
Yeah.
to belittle, not, some people, they that I take everything as a lesson, because sometimes those encounters with people that are just abrasive and we don't understand why that happened may push you on on your trajectory to your next destination. Not a stop, but like the next destination for you to grow and expand. So definitely making sure that we review those life lessons that happen to us, and
Yeah.
never to give up, to continue. There are days I want to quit. There are days I want to quit everything and just stay home and just stay under the covers. And then I remember, I can't. So many people, my ancestors went through so much, and to go back, because I'm thinking of my grandma. My grandma was very special.
Right. Yes.
Everything she went through, and I can't just fold. I can't. If anybody, it's for her.
I love that. Love that. And I think that having faith is so important. I mean, I feel the same way. It's not like I'm not like I don't know if I would consider myself religious either. I definitely think I'm very spiritual.
Mhm.
But definitely call on God, the ancestors, use the water, light the candles, do what I need to do to keep my mindset together. And I think everybody has to find that for whatever it looks like for them. But I love the fact that you just have your focus like on your grandmother and at the same time aligning who you interact with, because
Yes,
I really feel like, especially now in these days and times as we are maturing, you can't give your energy to everybody.
no,
You can't.
absolutely.
You just can't. You don't have it to spare, and everybody is not going to be able to provide quality energy back to you that's going to keep you inspired. you
Exactly.
know and, and as you made this limitless journey this year, did you find yourself having to make some tough decisions where in regards to the people that you surrounded yourself with and the content that you consumed, and if so, how did you how do you cultivate that? Mhm.
Well, first, knowing what you will put up with and what you won't put up with. So knowing your boundaries and making sure that you stick to them. Really honestly knowing what it is that you want for your life. If you know that, and we'll talk because I know we've talked about
Uh-huh.
it. Um, you know what you want, and not settling for what someone can offer. If that's not what fits your vision for your life, 5 years from now, a year from now, if it doesn't fit, then it just doesn't fit. And you gracefully thank them for the moments, and,
Yeah,
thank you,
deuces.
thank you,
Yeah.
deuces. Like, thank you, but no. And it's knowing what you want and knowing that you're not going to settle, and having the faith to know that what you want, that dream, that hope, that whatever's been placed in your heart, and it's there, having faith that it's going to come when it's ready to come, and not just settling for what comes down the pipe and seems like, oh, it's an okay option. So,
Yeah.
and
Oh
then in
yeah.
terms of, no, go ahead, Pam.
No, no, no. I was gonna say yeah, because we've had that conversation. We've talked about
Yes,
it more so for love, guys. That's
yes,
really what it is. We're talking about it in a relation standpoint.
yes,
I've been there. She's been there. So that's what
yes,
it is. There you go.
yes, absolutely. And then in terms of like also what you consume, if you're consuming something that, I'm guilty. I like reality TV shows that are kind of trashing, and
Oh yeah, me
and
too.
it's fun. But do I do it every single day? Do I listen to a certain type of music every day? No, I love my old school hip hop, but I just can't. I need to make sure that my energy is clear, and it can't be at level 10 all of the time, and varying.
Yeah.
So definitely having boundaries when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Make it everything in moderation.
Yeah.
Like, you can't drink all the wine in the world and think you're going to function the next day, or
Yeah.
everything in
Yeah.
moderation.
Oh, totally agree. And I was about to
Except for
say after
books.
40. Yeah, well, I don't know. See, I have moderation in books. You and my sister seem to be those people that can read like 5 or 6 books at one time.
Yes.
I'm just trying to keep up with this one I've got and all the other things flowing through this mind. So no, that's not for me. But I love that because you're right. It is so important, especially on a journey where you were trying to take the limits off. It's like you have to put limits on some of the
Yes.
things that you have around you that is pouring into you so that you can really be your most authentic, free self in order to just go out here and do all the wonderful things that you want to do. And that takes to me, it takes a very transparent moment to cut that kind of stuff out, to decide that you want to live limitless and to just pursue things that are just in alignment to your elevation. I do. So I commend you for being on that journey. I mean, because it's not easy. It can be very lonely too.
Yes. Yes, because then certain people drop off.
Yeah.
But you have to, and this is where you do the pre-work. You do all of that pre-work to see what is it that you really want in terms of relationships, friendships, family. I
Hmm.
mean, even with family members, you have to set boundaries. You
Yeah.
can't be a yes person all of the time and sacrifice everything you have going on to make sure that everyone else is okay. You got to take those 5 minutes for you too. And I find that a lot of adults with not parents, a lot of parents,
Yeah.
they give. And I encounter that at the school site. They give, and they don't realize you got to take some time for yourself. Take care of yourself, like putting your oxygen mask on first before
Yeah.
you can support everyone else, because they just give and don't realize that it comes a moment where they start to look and they're like, you know, is this it? Is this what life is supposed to be? And it's not. And that's where you get into that crisis, and you start to really have those conversations with, that's what happened to me, had those conversations with myself, and figure out what it is that I want in this next phase of life. Like, how much more time am I going to waste?
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's real because I had that. I was like, I'm about to be 49 years old, or I am 49 now, and I was like, I'm not going to be 59 trying to sit up in here and have conversations about my self-worth and my value or the love that I want or the friends that I need. Like I can't do that. Like
No.
it's either now or never. Like, and I
Exactly.
think that we all have to get to that point where we realize like, what are you waiting on?
What are you
What
waiting?
are you, yeah, what are you really waiting on? Because it's not going to change unless you change it. And kind of like we were saying, it is challenging, it is tough. As your 40s, you are the ones, your parents, you might be taking care of your parents like myself, or you're just trying to figure it out. And it's a lot because life is going to life, and it hits hard. And I guess for me, it was really about this year owning the fact that I need to stay inspired. I need to stay happy, and my happiness has to be paramount to everything else in order for me to, be able to function and do the things that I need to accomplish. What is inspiring you right now to stay limitless?
For me, there's a few things. I
Mhm.
get I get inspired when I'm at work. And there's times I'm not. But there's times
Okay.
it's not easy. Um,
Um,
there's times that when I have conversations with my students and they share just the impact or the nugget or something that they took away from either the lesson or the conversation or just even the interaction in the hallway, that is what inspires me. And I see the impact that I've had in their life. And I see the impact that I've had in my family's life, like my niece and nephew, and just my cousins and my parents, my sister. The impact that you have on others. And it gets reflected back to me when I most need it. When I'm thinking, that, oh, this is all in vain. I'm not doing anything. What's the point? Blah, 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 blah. And I get that nugget or something that happens or a message from a podcast. And it just puts the wind back into my sails. It puts, the movement, like what you're on course, what you're doing matters. And that's what keeps me inspired. And baby elephant videos. I know that's so random, but sorry, I
oh,
interject it in
I
there.
love
Like, and
it.
TikTok, I have this, at night, right
Yeah.
before I go to sleep. I I watch TikTok videos. We were talking. Yeah. So TikTok videos, they're inspirational. Sometimes I come
Yeah.
across something funny. Just seeing someone in their full on use of their talent,
Yes.
just taking in who they are and loving themselves as they are with all their quirkiness, whatever the case is, and they're just living their best life. Doesn't matter who's looking. That inspires me. That inspires me. So there's all many levels to this inspiration, to this motivation that continues on this course. And then again, like having a network of friends that, they remind you. They remind you
Yeah.
when things aren't going so great that, you know,
Yeah.
you got to keep going.
Oh, yes. I totally agree. Like you fed into me today because kind of like what we were talking about beforehand. Tennille sent me flowers today, y'all. And if you're watching this video, you better see them. Aren't they beautiful? It's a vibrant bouquet. And when I got them, I cried like a baby. And it just meant the world to me because it just it was like a wind in my sail, to remind me to keep going and to keep doing this. That's how I got to 100. Believe me, if it hadn't been for people like you or other people who have reached out to me about something that they've heard in an episode or how I motivated them and inspired them to do something, I wouldn't have made it this far. I would not have, because it's like when you're doing stuff like this and you're putting your heart out here, that's what you need, those little moments. So, like for me, watching you about to go out here and start your podcast and share your knowledge and your energy, I'm so inspired because I know that you are walking within your purpose.
Mhm.
I know you are doing exactly what you were called to do, and there are going to be so many people who benefit from it. And that's what gives me the feels. That's what gives me all the joy and the happiness, because that's I'm a connector, but I feed off of other people being successful. I feed off of other people finding their voice and their place, because you're a light. and we as lights have to encourage and inspire each other to
Yeah.
share the lights with the world. So I'm just so excited with you joining into this path. I know that there's not too much you can share
Not
yet.
yet. It's coming
Not
though.
yet. It's coming on April the 4th. Do you have
Mhm.
a name for your podcast yet? Or are you still kind of working that out?
I do. I do.
Do
It's
you want
called
to
the
tell
book.
me?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it. It's called the Book
Okay.
Advantage
The Book Advantage. Okay, now I'm writing it
podcast.
down. The
Yes,
Book Advantage
TBA.
podcast.
Those are the initials. TBA.
Okay. Ooh, I like that.
Right?
Okay. All right. I know you said it's launching April 4th.
April 4th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you picked your first book?
No, well, first it's the solo series that I'm
Okay.
gonna be sharing some of my favorite books. The
Oh, okay.
that have impacted my life. I'm gonna go into books that I read when I was younger that did that reflected the life that I wanted to live. I was living through my characters that I read on the book and not
Ooh,
living the life because I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel seen. And reflecting back on that, and I get a little emotional because I think of, that little girl, little chubby girl, brown with her afro curls. And because, they, I didn't know how to work my hair. My mom didn't know how to work my hair. Poor thing, she did what she could.
yeah.
Not seeing myself as pretty, as cute, as worthy. And I would live through these books with these characters that were popular and they were happy. And I wasn't. And I was living through them. And then I had an epiphany years later when I started to see myself represented in books.
Mhm.
And I saw myself and I was like, wow, so there are other people like me out there. So
Wow.
definitely that's the solo episodes will center around that. And then just like book recommendations. And as you can see, I got some over here and I got some over
Yeah.
there and I got some I got some more on the bookshelves
I
and
love it.
all up on the phone. Yeah, there's books everywhere.
Oh, awesome. I love it. Like I said, a good read is so important. Y'all know I love the Four Agreements. That book changed my life, but I totally understand how you felt growing up. I felt the exact same way, and I struggled with a lot of self-image issues. And I have to admit, and I'm going to ask you what yours is. I'm trying to think. When I was young, I think my favorite books then, where I totally could see myself in, I lived in, which is probably dating me, but I'm 49 and I'm owning that. So no hate. However, my favorite books then were the Judy Blume books. I
Okay.
read all of the Judy Blume books, Super Fudge, Dear
Yes.
God, It's Me, Margaret, when I got my period. I loved it because I got more out of that book. Not no shade to my parents, but my parents were not having the most elaborate period discussions. So I had read that book to get all my information, and I loved them. Judy Blume, oh my God, was like a lifesaver
Yeah.
me back then. That one and that, and then I was hooked on Sweet Valley High. I was hooked on Sweet Valley High. Nobody
I
could
love
even tell me I wasn't one of those little white twins. I know that probably gonna sound crazy, but I thought I was one of those girls because
that.
I
Elizabeth
read
and,
the book.
and Jessica Wakefield. Yes.
Heck yes,
I
Elizabeth
read
and Jessica.
all of them. All of
Yes,
them. I
girl.
lived through the twins. I was not
Me
popular. I
too.
didn't have a lot of friends. I was
Me either.
isolated and bullied my entire life. Well, my entire elementary school life. And that's how I went to parties and that's how I saw, romantic relationships. And
Yeah,
yeah, and I was young. I was young. I was maybe 8, 9,
yeah,
reading all of the books because
yeah,
life was challenging back then. And
yeah.
nobody knew. Like I didn't tell my mom what was going on. I just,
Me either.
begged
Yeah,
and pleaded, can you take me to the bookstore so I could buy some
yeah.
more books?
Absolutely. That was like my bonding time with my dad. He would take my sister and I to the library every Saturday. So
Yes.
we were avid readers and they were cool with it. I mean, our parents had bookshelves all throughout our house. So
Yeah.
I've read all different kinds of things growing up, and that was just what they expected, but what I found my love and my comfort in. So I totally identify with you on that too. What I was gonna say, I was gonna ask, what were your favorites when you were young? But it sounds like we were like the same thing.
Judy Blume is like, okay, so Judy Blume is a given. Like I know
Oh yeah,
plenty of people, they love Judy Blume, and I was like, oh, okay, when you said Judy Blume, I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
that's one author. I
yeah.
read, and I remember reading her in middle school and finding the books and going and diving in. But when you said Sweet Valley High, you saw I covered my face. I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe it. I
Yeah.
was speechless there for like a quick second, not very long because just for 5 seconds.
Right.
But oh my gosh, when you shared that, it's like that was my I read all of the I had every single book.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Every
That was all I bought. That was all I
yes,
got. Yeah.
yes. And I think I have I'm gonna look for it. I think I
Mhm.
have one I kept one copy because my mom at one point she's like, okay, this is getting out of hand. There's like no room for you in the room with all
Yes.
the books, like
Yes.
And I said yes, I had a problem, and I'm gonna put it in the past
Yes.
because now I'm not gonna let you see my Kindle or my Audible. That's a whole different situation there, but definitely I kept one book, and you
Hmm.
see my handwriting, and I look at my handwriting, I was like, oh, this
Oh,
little girl and her books,
yeah.
and how amazing was that? And yes. And I also had similar experiences. My dad used to drive me to the library, and it was a drive because there was one nearby, but it didn't have all of the books. So he would have to drive me
Yeah.
deep into Miami to
Oh
get those
wow. Yeah.
books. Yeah.
Yeah.
And reading
Wh-
Rainbow. Let's not even talk about reading Rainbow.
I'm saying like that was the thing. Like, yes, I loved reading Rainbow. What was it? The Scholastics
Oh,
uh
the book fair. And
book
my mom used
fair.
to say, hey, when I would come home with the flyer, she's like, no,
Yes,
no, 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 no,
yes,
no. Take that out of my
yes.
house. I was like, Mom. And I would circle like 30 books, and she's like, no, you can have three.
Pretty much. My mom was like, here's $20, make it work. She was like, make it work.
Yeah, yeah, same,
Yeah.
same here. So yeah, similar. And those experiences, it's like someone who wasn't out there, like living their life.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't grow up in the best of neighborhoods, so it's like we had to stay indoors unless there was an adult present outside. But we not that we were sheltered. I don't want to give off that impression either, because we
Hmm.
were a bicycle gang, like literally our huffy pink bikes, like riding around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Um,
Same here.
but our escape were the books. The
Yeah.
escape to
Yeah.
a life that we knew nothing about, that we had no entry until we opened the book and we started reading.
Yeah. I felt that way. Like I didn't grow. We grew up in a middle class area, luckily, and books for us were that's our parents were both really avid readers. So for them, their thing was just making sure that we read a ton of different books because they were like, there's going to be more that you're probably going to learn in the books than you might learn in school.
Absolutely.
So it just allowed us to have lots of different conversations. I think like I read the autobiography of Malcolm X for the first time, I think when I was 11. So like that was because my dad was like, I want to make sure you have this knowledge, you read it, and we talk about it. And so that was our bonding time as a family, that we would talk about books and read a lot, and that really is something that's always kept with us. My sister is an avid reader. I'm a decent reader now. I don't read as much as I used to, but my house is littered in books, so I totally understand it. And I just think that, as adults, it's nice for us to tap back into that side of ourselves because we have moments like what we're talking about where we
Yes.
can think back to our childhood and look at how far we have come from back then and the commonalities that we
Yes.
have, you just don't even realize it, but books can open all of those doors and those conversations for you. Because girl, I
Correct.
hadn't thought about Sweet Valley High in so long, and I'm sitting here thinking about Elizabeth and Jessica, and then Jessica's boyfriend was Todd.
Yes.
Yeah, like I'm like going through all of them, in my
Yes, and the
mind.
parties and the summer parties and the
Yes,
reunions and
yes,
all of this. And I've been outlining my podcast episodes, and that's one of them. And when you said that, you saw my face, like I could not believe there was somebody else with
yes,
me there
yes.
with Elizabeth and Jessica. Like,
Oh yeah. That's why I'm like really excited about your podcast because I think that there's just so many of us that can recall some of these moments and it feels good and it reminds you of the love that we have of books. And it could be and it's something we need to pick up
yes,
again
yes,
because there's just so much information and so many resources in a book. I mean, it's just amazing to me. So I can't wait to support you. Yes, when you launch, have you come back on so we can talk about where you are in the journey and whatever what you're reading. Because
yes.
obviously you're going to be reading a lot more than I am. Right now, I've got one book that I'm reading at a time. One. I put Will Smith on the side until I finish this one book.
Okay.
I'm
I
reading.
recommend
Mhm.
listening to Will Smith. If
I
you
have it
can't,
on. I have it on Audible. I just haven't
okay,
finished it. I do.
okay, you have to listen to it. Because if
Okay.
you love music,
Yeah.
as I love music, especially like 90s, because not only do books give references to things that happen to our life, so does music. Because I can
Right.
hear a song and it's like, oh, it'll take me back to, oh, I remember when I first heard that song. I remember when I
Absolutely.
first danced that song. I remember who I danced that song with. We're not going to go there, but
Ooh.
but it's like it's the memories that are created that with music, with books,
Yeah.
with the arts. That's why the arts are so important. That's
Right.
why we have to make sure that not only that we consume, but we support. So
Yes.
definitely.
Absolutely. No, I'm very excited about your podcast and about the book journey. I can't wait to get back on. I can't wait to share it with my sister. She's a big book reader, so she will probably love it and want to support. Now that you said that about music, it made me ask you because I always like to ask all my guests before we wrap up one final question. So now I have a new question to ask.
Oh
What
gosh.
is what song makes you feel limitless?
Okay. I always struggle when I get put on the spot, like for a song. But there is one for real, because
Okay,
I know I draw a blank.
girl.
Like I could say Mary J.
Okay.
Mary J's inspirational, but I can't
Okay.
think of a title right now because I know Mary J.
Okay.
There were times in life where like Mary J. was a girl and she was,
Yeah.
Adele was a girl getting us through certain
Yeah.
things. But for me, it's going to have to be, and it's going to be a Christian song,
Okay.
and I have several. So
Okay.
elevation worship is one that I listen to, especially to remember how loved I am,
Yes.
how
Okay.
loved, taken care of that I am. So
Okay.
Gyra is one,
Okay.
and there's a verse in that song that says, like God takes care of the sparrows, He takes care of the flowers. Why
Okay.
won't you think that you're taken care of, especially when it comes to when you're struggling, like you're worried and anxious? That song reminds you that there is a bigger being in this universe that is taking care of us. So
Yes.
that's one.
Okay.
Um, Countless Mary J songs.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. Elevation Worship Blessing. That
Blessing.
one is the
Okay.
one that got me through 2020 at the start of the pandemic. You want to
Right.
cry? Listen to that song because it's just putting blessing upon blessing
Like
upon
blessing.
blessing
Okay.
on you and your generations.
Yeah.
It's not just you. Like we carry everything that we do now impacts
Yes.
the future, whether you have kids or not. Whether you, I mean, I'm a teacher. I impact children. I know I do. So I have to treat them as if they were mine.
Right.
Um, our family members, just a person you encounter on the street, you impact them.
Yes.
So the blessing upon blessing upon blessing. And so that for sure is like, that's one. And there's another one. And I can't remember the title right now because I drew a blank, but it's
Okay.
Brandon Lake. And it's talking
Okay.
about the miracles.
Okay.
I'm just kind of upset with myself right now that I don't remember the title, but it's Brandon Lake.
Girl.
Yeah, because I'm like,
Well,
I all the music.
well, I know, but if you remember it, let me know because I'm gonna
Yeah,
share these in the show notes. I think that's gonna be this thing because I
yeah.
think when you're trying to be limitless, sometimes you feel down in the dumps. Sometimes you feel
Yes.
like you're not going to be able to push through. And we all need to have those theme songs, those moments that you
Yeah.
can just kind of forget and reset yourself into. So
Mhm.
I admire that you had that many. Like my favorite one is love when I feel to make me feel limitless is Love Theory by Kirk Franklin. Makes me feel limitless. It's
Yeah.
something, it just touches my soul and it just makes me remember how blessed I am. And when I need a good boost
Yes.
and I need to just take the limits off, I play that in my car. So sometimes people probably see me driving through and they think I'm crazy, but I'm just getting it in the car because I mean, he saves the day, he'll always
Yes.
come through and you need that reminder sometimes it's going to be okay. So I love it.
And then I have my site because another song just came up. And I know your audience is gonna laugh or whoever's watching this video, but like, she's like, oh, Christian inspirational. But okay, so Ludacris.
Okay. That's
Ludacris,
okay. Which one?
move out the way.
Oh, yes. Move. Oh, girl. Yes. See,
You know,
I always, I always think that one's like, I'm trying to, yeah, that is a limitless song. It's
yes,
like, look,
you
I
want
need
to
to
talk
get,
about
yeah,
you need inspiration to like pump
yeah.
yourself up because I heard it the other day and I was driving and I had to remember, okay, you cannot you cannot be speeding down these streets.
I do the same thing. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yes. So that's one that I know when I was completing my master's degree that I would play because it's like you would get to a point like,
Yes.
and you need that extra
Yep.
push. So
Yep.
there's certain songs like that just inspire
Yep.
you. When I was climbing my hill, because I told you I climbed a mountain
Yeah.
last year, and we didn't talk about it on this podcast, but I
Yeah.
climbed a mountain last year for my birthday. And that's one of the
Yes.
songs that I played getting myself ready to go climb that mountain. Yeah,
I love it.
we don't have elevation here in South Florida, but I had to go to a hill and I had to climb that hill to get myself ready for that mountain. And that
Yes.
was one of the songs.
That's right. Because y'all, she climbed Stone Mountain in Atlanta, Georgia.
I sure did.
And for those of you guys, I'm sure many of us know that is not like a little hill. That
No,
is a real big old mountain. Mhm.
yes, yes.
And so,
Did it in
yes,
2.5 hours up and down.
see that now that is definitely limitless thinking. Because Lord
Yes.
knows I probably would have been like, okay, well, y'all just leave me here. Come back for me in like a couple of days. I'll be ready to go down by then.
Yeah, and going down, and everyone's like, oh, it'll be easier going down. No, no, it was hard going up. It was harder going down. It was harder going down because you didn't want to lose your step or your grip when you're going down those rocks. And, some of us are a little more accident prone than others. So,
Yeah, me.
you know, so
Yeah.
definitely it's like, that was something limitless. If you were to ask me 10 years ago, would you like, do you want to climb a mountain? I was like, no, I don't even want to sweat. Like, you want me out there climbing stuff? What's wrong with you? I'm like, give me a book. Give me a book. Let me chill over there. No, no. And I climbed that mountain. I was happy and I would do it again. I will do it
I,
again. I
I,
still climb
that's,
the hill every week over here.
that's awesome. And that's what I'm saying. Like you've taken the limits off. Like there's no fear to it now.
No.
You just totally, you're involved, you're ready. See, those are things that to me are like so inspirational and just so motivating. And I just cannot wait for this new level, ma'am. I'm very excited for your new level. So as we wrap up, I guess you want to give us all the socials, all the deets, tell us where we can find you so we can
Okay,
support
so
you.
yeah, so for now, still look for me on Miss Virtual Maven, MS Virtual Maven. I'm gonna keep that, even though it says Pinterest marketing, I'm deviating away from that. But definitely, I don't want to lose all of my contacts there because I've met some really great people, you're included, because we met at Blog Her so many years
Yes.
ago.
Yes.
Um, and I don't want to lose those contacts. So for now, connect with me there on the gram. That's the best spot. That's usually what I'm checking. So Instagram, Miss Virtual Maven, connect with me, follow me, let me know you heard me on the podcast so that I can connect with you. And the launch, no worries, it will be on Miss Virtual Maven and my teacher Instagram, which is Profitable Teacher if you want to follow there.
Okay.
But Miss Virtual is where I'm always,
Always at.
connecting and storying and doing all that stuff.
Well, I will make sure I share all of your social information in the show notes. And, if you decide to build more platforms, let us know. We will make sure everything is updated. Hint, 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 hint.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, hint. She's catching my hints, y'all. She's catching the hints.
Yes.
Y'all catching the
All
hints.
day, every
You
day.
know, yes, it's just build more. But, it's never easy to build more when you have like 850 already. It's like, okay.
Girl,
But I
struggle is
know.
real, not only with the books.
Yes, the struggle is so real, but I'm going to share all of your book recommendations. I am going to share the song recommendations as well, because like I was saying, we are at that point where it's like the check-in, it's time to pivot, it's time to make adjustments before we wrap up the Q1. And so if you are struggling, because I've struggled too, girl, I want to make sure I'm giving you guys some motivation, because Tennille is extremely inspiring. And I just appreciate you sharing your journey and all of the information that you provided today, because I think that it's a really good start to this month for us to look at where we need to realign some things, celebrate the wins. I'm so excited for your wins, and pivot where we need to pivot. So very happy that you were able to be on the episode, on the podcast today, my 100th episode. I'm very floored to be here at this point, guys. At this point, my mindset is I just want to keep going and I want to keep getting better. So that is why I will be like challenging myself with video content and challenging myself to just make sure that I'm providing you the information that you need to win. Because like I said to you guys, that's really where my heart center is. I know that everything else will fall into alignment if I focus on you. So I just want you to know that that is where my alignment will be. So I will have all of Tennille's information in the show notes, my information in the show notes. Don't hesitate to give me feedback. Let me know what you think, what you like, what you don't like. I'm a big girl. I can take it, because this is all about growth and elevation here in this positive space, baby. And I will look forward to talking to you guys again next week. No, there will not be video next week, child. We were just going back to this one. I'm trying to crawl before I walk. I'm not just jumping on out here just yet, crawling before I walk. Don't get excited. But I promise I'll have another great episode for you guys. And Tennille, again, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me tonight. And this episode, it felt right. It felt right, because we're taking the
Thank you
limits
for
off. So thank
having
you.
thank you for having me. And it's as as I told you earlier, definitely giving you your flowers while you're still here. Like sharing, and that's one last thing I want to tell your audience. Make sure you give your people their flowers.
Amen.
And flowers can happen in a variety of ways. It doesn't have to be physical flowers, but definitely give them their flowers. And hope your audience is giving you your flowers, because you definitely deliver every week. And we appreciate you.
Well, thank you guys. And thank you, because you're going to make me cry, girl. I love you. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited for you. I want to support you in any way I can. So let's do this, baby. Upward and elevation. All right, guys. Have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.